they're finding themselves on the stage holding that golden statue shows that no matter what age somebody is, they're not done.
I am often the person that holds myself back the most. RuPaul calls that your inner saboteur.
This is messaging for the youth too. When there are bullies, if they say things about you or think things about you, says who? You ain't done yet. I'm getting like emotional.
I would never say to 10-year-old Zachary that he couldn't do that. Well, then why are you saying it to yourself now?
Then I sometimes even fall deeper into this hole of self-shame. I actually externalize this internal voice by making it something or somebody else.
In education, our goal is to uplift and to build.
Right. And in healthcare, we are there to heal. How can we help heal if we are placing them in this box and kind of keeping them there? It's about seeing that they are more than that, seeing that they're not done by being in this box. You ain't done yet.
Siempre adelante, always forward. Welcome to Simply Enough. This is Zachary and Elizabeth, and thanks for tuning in.
If you're liking our podcast, we'd love it if you'd share with your friends and family.
And then rate and review to raise our visibility and spread the message of enoughness.
We love you, and remember, you are simply enough.
Just as you are.
Period.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr. Zachary Linnert.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio. And we record these episodes a few weeks ahead of time. So by the time you are listening to this episode, I will say that we're recording this episode right after the Academy Awards just happened, the Oscars. And I am just tickled pink about the winners of the acting category, the 4 acting categories. And the reason why I'm personally tickled is my being 51 and almost 52 years old. It just meant a lot to me personally. Never mind the fact about the winners of 2 of the 4 categories and the Best Picture highlighted Asian Americans. Yay! But of all 4 of them, they were all in their 40s and 50s. And the reason why I love that is it just resonated with me that the 4 winners, for those of you by the time you're listening to this, if you've forgotten, Jamie Lee Curtis won Best Supporting Actress. Ke Huy Quan won for Best Supporting Actor. Yeah. Brendan Fraser won for Best Actor, and then Michelle Yeoh won for Best Actress. And to see all of them there and so excited and saying their short speech, the running theme for all 4 of them actually is how they thought that they might have been done and that the industry might have been done with them, and that they're finding themselves on the stage holding, that golden statue really just shows that they're not done. And again, like I said, my being, almost 52 years old, that really, really resonated with me, especially where I am in my own career and in my own season of life, and with COVID pandemic these past 3 years and how that's impacted this season of life for me. It's taken reflection and pivoting, and a lot of gratitude for sure in terms of all that has happened and all that I have to look forward to. And it just shows that no matter what age somebody is, they're not done. And this is even a message even for our youth. If teenagers are feeling like that they're being told no, or if young adults in their 20s, 30s are being told, no. I just love this theme of these 4 winners of they're not done. And specifically back to my age group, Michelle Yeoh said something just so quotable, and it being quotable doesn't mean that it's any less true either, and evergreen in its message, which is don't let anybody ever tell you you're past your prime. And she said it especially to the ladies. I don't know if people know the background to that, how Don Lemon, who is a CNN anchor, So this wasn't even, a far, not to get political, but this wasn't even a far right-wing thing. This was just a person commenting about actually a presidential candidate. Again, I'm not getting political, but a presidential candidate who happens to be female. She's 51, and how she's already past her prime and shouldn't consider running. And he even ventured to not only guess, but state that a woman's prime is in her 20s, 30s, maybe 40s. And here is Michelle Yeoh, who is 60, Jamie Lee Curtis, 64, Brendan Fraser, 54, and Ke Huy Quan, I believe in his late 40s, perhaps. There's no such thing as past your prime. And especially ladies, that messaging, not only from Don Lemon, the CNN anchor, but culture and society, where you might think that you're past your prime. You're just getting started. We ain't done yet. You're just getting started. But that's a message for everybody, male and female, young and not as young.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I remember seeing the speeches, but I think almost all of them mentioned something like that in their speeches, and also alluded to maybe their track, for lack of a better word. Like Jamie Lee Curtis had been doing horror films for the early part of her career. And in one interview that I read about her, she talked about how she felt trapped in that and felt that she had more to give as an actress, but here she felt almost pigeonholed in the horror movie genre. And Michelle Yeoh, similarly with more action-based, like Crouching Tiger, these kind of martial arts-based movies. So for them, even more so, to say you're not done yet because you're not also stuck in the path that you have been in also, I thought was another layer of added depth to their comment of exactly what you're saying.
And for the men, so this isn't just like a message of woman or female empowerment. For the men, Brendan Fraser, by his own words, thought that he was washed up, but he wasn't. And Ke Huy Quan literally, felt that he had to pivot and his acting days were done, and that he had to focus on, stunt coordinator, stunt choreographer, director, producer. And that's all great. And that's all, he was successful in that realm, just like, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michelle Yeoh are successful in their realms. But when you feel that there is more in you, and if there is a dream in you, their messaging for all four of them is they're not done yet. Keep living the dream big. Don't let the dream die. And certainly don't believe or let anybody else take that dream from you by somebody else's measures, standards, rulers of, ruling of what they believe is prime or not.
Which when Don Lemon was asked, well, what is a woman's prime? You start to realize, I don't care what your definition is, because it's getting back to this idea of simply enough. It's all about me and alignment of me. And if we live in that place of taking on somebody else's ideas or definitions, what limitations does that put us under that also don't feel totally in alignment with what we see of ourselves and where we see we can go? Even more so, it's an unshackling. And again, not to get political, I'll just speak candidly. My mom has been battling physical ailments for a very long time. And for somebody who's been enduring as much physical pain as she has, I have no idea what that's like day in and day out to undergo the kind of pain that she is in. When we would talk about it, and she would say things like, I'm 68 years old, or I'm 70 years old, as if that number in her mind, I got the sense, denoted like she was old or she was done, or there was a negative sense with that. I would say, Mom, whether or not you like her, don't like her, I'm not saying yes or no about her, but at 68 years old, Hillary Clinton ran for president. At 68 years old, this woman who believed that she, still had more to give and wanted to be the president of the United States, like her politics or not, just look, at 68 years old, she is willing to step into probably the hardest job, a very difficult job nonetheless. And maybe there's inspiration that you can draw from her in your understanding or reframing of what your age is for you. You're not done yet, mom. You know, you're 70 years old, and I know you're battling a lot of things, but there are people or models around you that can show you, oh, there's still a lot of dreams that can come to fruition that you have in you. So as soon as you were talking, that's what I thought. I thought of my mom, and also using a celebrity-based example to say, you aren't done yet, mom.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There is a woman in her 90s, and she practices in, I believe, La Jolla, California, and she's a best-selling author as well, Dr. Edith Eger. Dr. Edith Eger is still a practicing psychologist, meaning she still sees patients. She's in her 90s. She is in, San Diego, California, and she has written many books. One of the best known is called "The Choice: Embrace the Possible." And if there's anybody that can attest to the fact that one can choose one's direction, and one does not have to be just the victim of one's circumstances. It's Dr. Edith Eger, and I'm hedging because Dr. Edith Eva Eger is a Holocaust survivor, and I've had the pleasure of not only reading her works, but actually, being on a Zoom call with her. And it's so powerful what she speaks of from her own experience in terms of the power of choice, the power of perspective. And here she is in her 90s, still a practicing psychologist, but she speaks to things in terms of choices of like everything in life is a choice. When she was a Holocaust survivor, she chose how to look at that daily circumstance, and she chose and found blessings where they were. She said, I had a choice to, well, actually, I'm sorry. I had a choice to be a cannibal, which is graphic, but I had a choice to be a cannibal, or I had a choice to eat grass. I chose grass. When I chose to eat grass, I get to choose between blades of grass. I mean, it's just powerful how one's framework, one's perspective, one's mindset can really strengthen and can be used as a means of empowerment, and can be life-giving.
I'm overwhelmed by what you just shared, and also beautifully reminded of my grandmother, my dad's mom, who we unfortunately lost to cancer. In her battle with cancer, she and my mom would talk relatively regularly, and she would say similar things, right? And here's a woman who she raised 7 children, and she just was an inspiration to so many, going through the amount of pain that she was going through. And she really took the opportunity to try to connect and relate with my mom and say, I don't understand your pain, but I do understand pain. And I want to share with you my thoughts and my thinking, which is I still have, like you said, choice, and I still have opportunities ahead of me. And I choose to focus on the time that I can have with my granddaughter, and have lunch with my great granddaughter and my granddaughter, and these conversations with you. And you sharing that just brought me back to the place of the messaging that we still do try to give my mom and other people, which is exactly what you're saying, that word choice. And also just this moment of empowerment. You still have so much within your control that you can move from, and you can go towards, and you can still live out. And I think for somebody who went through what she did at 90 years old, to still be seeing people and to still be writing and still passing on that message, I'm so inspired. I'm kind of aghast at that, and just what she has endured to still have such a positive and forward focus.
Mm-hmm. She's not done yet.
She's not done.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yep. It really, really is incredible. I hope this doesn't trivialize what you just said, but it reminded me also of a message that I got to give in chapel at the school in Hawaii at Iolani. I'm a big American Ninja Warrior fan. I don't know if I've ever told you that. I watch American Ninja Warrior. Yes. And as secretly maybe not done yet. There's still, I believe, a ninja inside of me that would want to do those courses and everything. However, the point is, the point of the message was essentially what you were saying, using American Ninja Warrior as a direct example for 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. One of the ninjas, as he started, his name is Jamie Ron, and he had green hair. He was super cool. As he started, he lost one of his shoes. Okay. So this is kind of unusual, right? For him to lose his shoes. And you really do, you need your shoes as you're going through the course. Well, he then gets to another step in the course and he loses his next shoe. Okay. Now, I imagine he never trained barefoot, but rather than kind of give up and say, nope, I'm done, I'm out, he was like, no, I'm going to keep going. Right. And you could tell that he literally took his socks off and shoes off because he's like, I'd rather be barefoot of both feet than one and the other. Like, and he made the choice not only to kind of make it quote unquote harder, but also to keep going. And you literally saw that. And he succeeded. He completed the course. He succeeded in completing the course. Did he succeed, period? Yes, because he kept going and that was still the choice that he made. But to your point about it, not just being a message for women or men or people in their 60s, that example to me was a great opportunity to show children you are not the victim of your circumstances, that you still have choices and you can still keep going and you can be in your dream and you can hit a roadblock and you can find your own way around it and keep going. And so I know it's such a weird, counterpoint to a Holocaust survivor, but it still finds another way to reach a different audience in exactly what you're saying about choice and control, and you aren't done until you decide you're done.
Yes. Agency. That's the one thing that cannot be taken away from us, is one's own agency, your own agency in choosing how you see things. And then from how you think and feel about something, then you take action based on that. And then you get results from that. You're so much more than your circumstances. Keep going. You're not done yet until you say you're done yet. So it's not about, I hate this saying, but it is funny. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. It ain't over until you say so, period. No singing has to happen. And certainly no singing from somebody else has to happen. It ain't over until you say it's over. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be rainbows and unicorns, but again, these Oscar winners, all four of them thought that they were either done, washed up, pigeonholed, limited, but they weren't done.
Why I think this is pretty powerful is because we do receive an onslaught of messages about what it's like to age or to be a woman, or what your prime is like, or when you can pivot and make a different choice in a career, or maybe you can want to pursue a dream. That we do, I think, endure a lot of messages about our own agency. And I'm grateful that you brought this up, because it is real and it is personal. And I think many of us are affected by it. And you said you are in your 50s. And this has a real personal connection to you. And so I think many listeners, myself included, we internalize this and we internalize some of these narratives about what it means to, want to go after a different job, or to start a new relationship, or to move, or any choice that you have in front of you that may feel, or a message that you've received that may feel like you're done when you're actually not done. That awareness alone, I think, is critical. And I think that why I'm excited about this message is because I don't always give that thought true garden in my brain to let that thought become like a full grown idea, that I still have choice. I still have empowerment. I still have agency.
And there is the awareness of it, and then what? And if I can just give, or remind the two simple tools of when one is faced with somebody else's measurement, somebody else's definition, then the two questions that pop up in my head are, says who? Says who? Who says 20s, 30s, 40s is the prime of a woman's life? Says who? And then the follow-up to the says who is, okay, now you can name who says it. And at that point, you can decide, does that person and that person's opinion matter or not? And then even on top of that, says who? And then Is it though? You know, I always love that question.
Yes.
Is it though? And the corollary of is it though is it true?
Mhm.
And if something is true, then truth is universal. There are very few actual truths. There's a lot of ingrained beliefs, but an ingrained, embedded belief does not necessarily make something true. Do you see? Did I oversimplify that?
No, you didn't at all.
So those are the two questions that when I like self-coach, those are the questions that pop up in my head when I'm like, what do you mean you're telling me that I can't be an orthopedic surgeon just because I'm a 5'1" Filipina? What do you mean that, I not a good mom because I don't bake a dozen cupcakes for, a birthday party for my kid, that kind of thing. So the question then is, says who?
Mm-hmm.
And then even in naming who says it, even if it's an accepted belief, then I challenge that with, okay, that's a belief. Is it truth?
Mm-hmm.
Is it though? Is that truth?
Well, and look at the examples that we've brought up today. Every one of them challenged a belief, a belief that you didn't have control over the way that you interpreted such graphic and horrific events like the Holocaust, a belief about what it's like to be a woman in Hollywood at a certain age, what it's like to be actors or actresses in Hollywood that have gone down one particular path, that maybe that path is not the only path that you want to be down, or what it's like to be an athlete that's faced some obstacles and now, decides like, can I complete this or can I continue on this journey? Challenging those beliefs. Look at what happened. You just prove they're not true.
And as much as, especially given the examples of these 4 actors, I am very quick to comment on challenging the beliefs that society has placed on us and that has been embedded on us, and says who. Know also that sometimes the answer to the says who is yourself. And so you have to recognize that, that sometimes the loudest voice that's talking is the one in your head, that itty bitty shitty committee that we've talked about in previous episodes. And that's where you have to challenge even yourself. Like, okay, I have come to believe this to be true. And I have said this to myself. Says who? I'm saying it to myself that I can't and that I'm not enough and that I'm not worthy. But that's a belief. Is it true?
Mm-hmm.
It's inherently not true. If you believe you're not enough, you're not worthy, you have no value, you deserve to suffer, that age means declining because it's how you feel. Okay, but is that truth? Says who?
RuPaul calls that your inner saboteur.
Love that. So true.
Isn't it true?
Very loud voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
For those of you that watch RuPaul's Drag Race, I'm referencing that TV show, and whether or not we keep this or not, I will just say that drag does not harm children, but I'm just going to put that.
Well, that's what one of the winners said, right? Was Daniel, one of the Daniels who won the writing for Everything Everywhere All at Once, said how he loves his parents for supporting the fact that here's their kid dressed in drag, which threatens no one.
Right. Yes. Doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's a little side tangent. But anyway, so in the TV show RuPaul's Drag Race, RuPaul will go into the workroom and talk with the queens, and will identify those moments when the queen is saying things that give voice to the inner saboteur. And then we'll call it out, and we'll do exactly what you're doing, which is the beauty of that moment is external coaching, but you also talk about self-coaching, which is, I think, the strength of what you're giving us right now are these questions we can ask ourselves to do that self-coaching, to identify, is that inner saboteur sustaining those beliefs, those limiting beliefs, and what we do with that. Because you're right. I will say for myself, I am often the person that holds myself back the most. Admittedly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I definitely don't believe in shame. I don't think that there's any worth or value in shame. And it's amazing how we learn so much from shame or in shame, but that doesn't mean that's the way to do it or the healthy way to do it. And so sometimes I also even self-coach myself that when I'm recognizing that it's my own voice that's doing the judging, that's doing the shaming, that's doing the blaming, that's doing the measuring, then I sometimes even fall deeper into this hole of self-shame. Like, shame on you, Ignacio, that you know better than this. You coach other people about this. And so sometimes in order to better objectively depersonalize, but still address that voice in the head, I actually, this is going to sound schizoid, but I actually separate that voice, to RuPaul's point of being like almost something else, the inner saboteur, that it's not me and who I am talking to myself. It's this voice, this separate voice. You know, as we've talked about in previous episodes, my faith is strong. Sometimes what I literally say when I hear these judging, shaming, blaming words that are holding me back, I literally say, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Mm-hmm. Not to get very Christian and religious on people, but I'm just saying that's a tool that I use so that I don't delve deeper into, you know, self-shame and self-harm, if you will, because shame is harmful. I actually externalize this internal voice by externalizing, by making it something or somebody else. Yeah, get thee behind me, Satan. Get out of me. Is it true? Who says who?
I'm gonna steal that if that's okay. I'm gonna steal that.
Of course, it is. It's a tool.
Because in therapy, my therapist that I was working with would recognize when I was doing this, and the way that my therapist would reframe it was, okay, would you pass that belief on to Zachary at 10 years old? So then I would have to, in front of my therapist, talk to 10-year-old Zachary and say, you can be an Oscar award-winning actor when you're 62 years old, something like that. And I would say, no, I would never say to 10-year-old Zachary that he couldn't do that. And then he would say, well, then why are you saying it to yourself now? What I like about what you're doing is I still lived in that place of being in control of that voice, or that voice was mine. I like the idea of separating it from me, separating it a little bit from my identity. Cause you're right. Then I do go to a place of shame about it. Like, oh, that is my voice. That is my belief. That is my own, self-shame, rather than putting a little bit of distance and then releasing it.
I use that also in a different way as a tool for my patients, for whether the word is motivation or inspiration. So they recognize that they ain't done yet. They're not done yet. Age is a number, youth is a mindset. What I use the tool of externalization in my world of healthcare is, you are not your disease, or you are not your disease process. You are not a diabetic. You have diabetes. Mm-hmm. You are not obese. You have this weight to lose. Mm-hmm. And then you have the agency and the choice to lose this external thing, as opposed to this identity of obesity or sick. Or in healthcare, I have to tell you, shame, I hate that word, but shame on us physicians when we're in training, nurses, healthcare providers, that often patients do get described as part of our training, like, oh, in room 3 is the diabetic, and in room 4 is the hypertensive, and in room 5 is the fractured humerus, and in room 6 is the torn rotator cuff. And shame on us providers that we do that. We were trained to be that way, but I myself am very mindful of not doing that and not looking at a patient that way. And then I pass that lesson on to the patient also, which is, yes, you have a torn rotator cuff, or yes, you did have surgery and now you're recovering from it. It's you are not broken. You have an injury which you can overcome and heal from. You are not an injured patient. You could have been victimized, but you are not a victim. You will be a victor. Does that make sense?
Oh, it 100% makes sense. And so as to not leave you hanging, educators do that as well. We do that as well. We do label children, and then we talk about them via those labels, which is fascinating to me, because in education, our goal is to uplift and to build, right? And in
healthcare, we are there to heal. How can we help heal if we are placing them in this box and kind of keeping them there? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's about seeing that they are more than that, seeing that they're not done by being in this box.
Yes. And as you were talking about the ways in which we apply labels onto others, I was thinking, and simply enough, we always come back to me, right? That we are not just simply enough, we are more than enough. And really our work is about ourselves. But the secondary gift that I think you gave at the end of this episode is also the ways in which we look at others and apply or put beliefs upon them. And that can be a stopgap for me about then how I then do that to myself. So if I look at Jamie Lee Curtis and say she's a 64-year-old actress who's largely done horror films, what is she doing with an Oscar? Whoa, wait a minute. Well, that exists in my cranium. Like what, I'm not going to shame myself for it, but also why am I putting that limiting belief on her? Why am I she's not done yet. Look at her. So not only can I apply that to myself, but I can apply it to myself in how I apply it to others that then comes back to myself. I know this is kind of weirdly cyclical in the way that I also understand that how the inner saboteur lives in my mind is also part of the practice of me doing that to others and then in turn doing it to myself. So I have two opportunities to catch myself, not only in what I say to myself internally or what my inner saboteur says to me internally, but then also what I say or think about others too, and catching myself then.
And that's how, in different words, it's the same exact thing you're saying. I'll just change the words in that's how we give others and ourselves space and grace and self-compassion. That's what that is ultimately.
Absolutely. Wow. We jumped all over the place in such a beautiful way. I mean, we talked about celebrities and a Holocaust survivor and a presidential candidate and an American ninja warrior. I mean, the opportunities to find inspiration of people who are demonstrating that they're not done yet, they have choices and they have an agency, and we can be inspired by that to then break through whatever inner voice is saying limiting beliefs or reinforcing limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves and potentially about others.
And even for our youth, I mean, bullying is rampant. We're much more aware now of bullying, especially with social media. This is messaging for the youth too. You ain't done yet. And when there are bullies or mean girls that are putting you in a box, you ain't done yet. If they say things about you or think things about you, says who? Says who? Is it true what they're saying? No, you know that. Says who?
I was just going to ask if you can come back to those questions again, just those little check-in self-coaching questions to just bring us home, to give us a really strong takeaway at the end of this awesome episode.
Oh, I thought I just did. Sorry.
No, there were a couple, like says who, is it though? Is that true? Like those questions.
Yeah. So when you hear the saboteur internally or externally, you can be grounded and rooted in your sense of self-belief. And from that belief, you can, sorry, I'm getting like emotional, but, we talked about, to your point, celebrities, politicians, and best-selling authors and Holocaust survivors. And, and we talk about, kids and youth being bullied. And I just, on a personal level, this resonates so much with me because of, yes, my life stories, which in many ways, I'm sure won't be different from many others, just our own, each individual flavors and experiences of our own individual journey. But I'll just say that the reason why I'm blessed to be in a group private practice were because of circumstances that I had to decide and discern whether I'm done or not yet. And I'm so grateful to the good Lord above and the people that surrounded me and lifted me that I continued on my journey a decade ago as an orthopedic surgeon. And when I was splitting with a large group, a very large, very powerful group. And here I was going out on my own to form this small little, at the time, small little practice, because I had to dig deep and believe and tell myself, I'm not done yet. And in feeling and knowing that I'm not done yet, and in starting this practice, we named our group practice Imua, which is in Hawaiian. Imua means moving forward. And specifically, actually, there is a spiritual undertone, because imua really means moving forward with spirit. And sorry, I'm getting emotional. And we continue to do so and I continue to do so even in this different season of my life, as, I contemplate, whether it's retirement or part-time, and focusing on, the mindset and well-being coaching, or is it just complete and pure retirement to, observe and watch, my kids as they're going into their new season of life. Just knowing that I'm not done yet, and I'm almost 52, but I'm not done yet. Moving forward with spirit. The way that I do that is knowing that, there's a saying, it's not where you stand, it's the direction in which you're moving that matters. Move forward. We're not done yet. And I do that empowered with the tools of when I'm being second guessed, judged, dismissed, ignored, where I feel, unworthy, invisible, all of that. And then some, the questions that we ask or I ask to self-coach is it though? Says who? Is it true? Is it just a belief?
You kicked off our episode talking about how this moment at the Oscars struck you. As your friend and podcast co-host, I thank you for also sharing the ways in which this has really hit you personally where you're at. I think you're bringing that up is truly relatable for anybody that's listening, because if you're 14 years old or 22 years old, or there's such an access point in what you shared about these questions that you personally you're facing, and then also how those questions are impacted by whatever beliefs, limiting beliefs or whatnot that, that we have or we receive. And to just have those questions anchor us and help us go through these big life moments, I think for me personally helps me reframe the way that I look at these opportunities, that there really is a chance for you to continue to live who you are and your alignment of yourself and to find you. And so I just thank you for sharing what you shared at the end, and for also kicking off this episode the way you did, and then bringing it full circle.
I love that you use the word opportunity, because if we can see life that way, and if we can choose, like Dr. Edith Eva Eger says, make choices to see life that way as opportunities, obstacles don't get in the way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes obstacles are the way.
Yep.
It's what we learn from the obstacles that leads to success, satisfaction, fulfillment, whatever word we want to insert there. And that's why we're not done. We're never done. And that's not to say that it's chasing some elusive thing out of reach. I'm just saying that life is growth and life is experience. And so we're never done. And we're certainly not done because somebody else says we're done.
Siempre adelante, right? Always forward, always moving.
Forward. Imua.
Imua. I love that. And when in doubt, remember that you are not just simply enough.
You are more than enough.
Just as you are.
Period. Love you. We ain't done.
Nope.
We're not past our prime.